I took notice to some of the other dads, and I saw that as soon as life, quote unquote, life happens, they just stopped everything aside from work and sitting down, meaning they stopped being fit. They stopped trying to be strong. They stopped trying to develop themselves, not just physically, but mentally.
They just shut down.
They just let it go.
Are you ready to find success in the new year? Physically, mentally, socially? Welcome to this classic episode of Spartan Up. We have 3 takes on that idea, the idea that you have to think success to have success. First, Dr. Laura Pence brings a little psychology to the conversation. Second, Rick Cabot, the CEO of Darn Tough Socks, puts it in a business perspective. And third, underground strength coach Zach Even Esh joins Joe DeSena to talk about being successful in life and all the little things it takes to get you there. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Junk, the official headband of Spartan Pros. Junk produces the best headband, guaranteed to work as hard as you do. Visit junkbrands.com/Spartan for 10% off your order. Maybe you've heard of confirmation bias lately when it comes to the news. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how confirmation bias can impact your drive to success.
Well, one of the reasons why we're talking about confirmation bias today is not because of Santa Claus. It's because of your belief about yourself. Because if we have negative beliefs about ourselves or negative judgments or stories that we tell ourselves, we're going to scan the external world for information that confirms those beliefs. And that gets us into trouble. Because there could be tons of information out there that disproves our belief. But if we are hell-bent on sticking to this belief, then we're going to get all of the information that we can that proves the belief to be true and suck that in. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say you're considering running a Spartan race, but you're a little bit unsure about it, right? Or apply this to something else. Let's say you're considering running age group or considering running with the elites, but you're uncertain about it. And you've got a belief that you can't quite do it, okay? Well, then you're going to scan the environment, scan the external for information that confirms this belief, right? So let's say that your gym closes. That could even be something you could use to confirm your belief. See, I was never meant to run the Spartan race, my gym closed. Or let's say in one of your test runs, you didn't pace the way that you wanted to. Then you're going to take that information. See, this is information that I can't do the race in the way that I want to, or I'm not good enough to run age group, or I'm not good enough to run elite, right? Despite the fact that that entire week, you could have had an amazing training program, but you ignore that and you latch onto the information that confirms that negative belief you have about yourself. So how do you get away from it? Well, the best answer is you understand confirmation bias. The more that you understand confirmation bias, the less likely you are to fall into that trap, because you might be able to recognize when you're latching onto information that confirms the belief rather than considering information that disproves the belief, okay? So when you're working on changing your beliefs about yourself, or when you're working on understanding why you get stuck, consider this idea of confirmation bias. What information are you latching onto to confirm the belief about yourself? And how can you make sure that you're considering the other information out there that disproves it?
At Spartan, we're all about the success mindset, the resilience mindset. We know that the lessons from the Spartan race course, from the gym, from the trails, they all translate to the rest of your life. Next up, hear how Rick Cabot, the CEO of Darn Tough Socks, thinks about the challenges of running that business.
You hung on an extra 10 years because most people were going out of business late 80s, right?
Well, I think most of the garment type folks probably went out of business. The sock people were able to last a little bit longer. And then, as I said, all of our customers pretty much went offshore. We were down to 3 days a week. 35 people. I started Darn Tough in 2003 as a response to just try to stay in business.
But you had the factory. You had the factory.
We had a factory, but we didn't have any kind of brand.
You had no customers ordering anymore.
We were making everything for other people.
Got it.
And then I said, we got to make our own product.
But you're up against the wall at that point.
Correct.
Late 90s, you're up against the wall. You've got running out of money.
Correct.
You've got
out of money.
You've got young children at that point? No, you just got married.
Yeah, my son was just born.
Son was just born.
Yep.
And Dad started the business.
Cabot Hosiery, yep.
Yep. And so wouldn't it have been easier just to pack up and go get a job?
Sure, it would have been easier, but...
So you're a Spartan.
I'm a Spartan at heart. I'm darn tough at heart.
Yeah.
And because of the challenge and because how difficult it was, it's why I took it on. I had to turn it around. I wanted to turn it around. We had the ability and the skill and the intelligence to turn it around.
But it's a pretty dark moment. I'm getting into this because I get letters every day from people that say, I'm busted, I'm broken, I don't, right, how do you do it? And so that's why that moment is the interesting moment for me and the audience, I think, is why do you do that? And how do you do that?
I just don't ever really want to ever give up. You know, you do reach a point where it's very dark. You do reach a point where you feel like you have nothing left in the tank, as a Spartan racer might. But then you dig deep. You have an epiphany. You get a vision. You see success. And then you just drive towards that vision of success. I'm a big believer that you have to visualize it. You have to see it. You have to find it within yourself, and then you have to just go after it as hard as you can, and that's exactly what we did.
So it's late 90s, you're down to a couple of customers, you're down to a few shifts, most people have been let go.
Most people were let go, laid off.
And you're sleeping one night, you get this vision, I'm going to start a brand.
Yes, pretty much. If there was a big player at the time, and I said to myself, they don't make their own product, but we have 3 generations of hosiery experience. My grandfather was in the sock business also. We have some equipment. We have a dedicated workforce. If I can't produce the best sock out there, guarantee it for life, then nobody should be able to. And that was really that driving vision, that there was a big hole in the market. There was no premium product, and I had the vision for it.
And you could do it.
And I could do it. And we did do it.
And so you go all in. You mortgage the house. What do you do? You
took another mortgage. My father took another mortgage out on his house. I took another mortgage out on our house. Personal guarantees.
Do you say to yourself, if this doesn't work, we're completely screwed? Like, what goes through your head? Or is that not even an option?
It's sort of always out there that that last thing that could possibly keep you up at night, other than the challenge, is what if it doesn't work? But every day that you succeed, you're further and further away from that ultimate failure. And I just kept focusing on succeeding every day. And then that little failure piece just got smaller and smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. And we're still at it today.
Made it work.
Made it work.
Yeah. And
you have no choice.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because I've had a lot of businesses over the years, and a lot of them are failed. And when I think back, you got to be all in.
You have to be all in,
because it's going to suck
every day. Yeah,
right?
Some days are better than others, and some days you're like, why? I'm not capable of doing this. I shouldn't be able to.
And if there was a safety net and you weren't like more, you just say, you know what?
If there was a safety net, I would have failed.
Yeah.
I think part of the success that anyone can have is not having that safety net, knowing that it has to succeed.
Right. You have no choice.
You have no choice.
While I put my socks on, give us some advice for those aspiring entrepreneurs or people that are kind of stuck in life and don't know which way to go or how to succeed.
I'll say one of the best things that happened to me was almost going out of business. And you learn a lot of lessons. You learn what you're made of. You learn what you're capable of. And if you really have a vision and you really have a good idea and you believe in it and you believe in yourself, just don't give up. That's the one thing, really the only thing that separates winners from losers is losers give up.
But you might have to pivot. You pivoted.
You have to be flexible.
Right.
You have to course adjust as the course adjusts or as the course changes. But ultimately, you have to always sort of steer back to that vision and what you got started with in the first place.
Be passionate about it.
Be passionate when you need to be passionate. Be dispassionate when you need to be dispassionate. Look at the numbers. You've got to take into consideration a lot of inputs.
So for the listeners, let's do 3 big takeaways.
You got to have a vision. Like, don't start till you see it. Have a plan. You got to be flexible within the plan, but you have to have a plan. And as important, and maybe the most important thing, is never ever give up. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how dark it appears, keep going.
I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
We can't wait for the Spartan socks.
We'll be right back to this interview, but first a little bit from today's sponsor, Junk Headbands. Their headbands are the official headband of Spartan Pros. They produce a headband guaranteed to work just as hard as you do to keep the sweat and the mud out of your eyes. They are UPF 50 sun protection, they're made in the USA, they're easy to clean, and they won't fade. So wear the headband of the Spartan Pros. Go to junkbrands.com/Spartan to save 10% off your order. And finally, a candid conversation between Joe DeSena and Zach Even Esh, talking about the little things in life that you've got to get in place to keep driving your team towards success.
Anyway, we got this idea that why don't we share some stories? Why don't we create a podcast, a video podcast? That's why you're seeing us on video, where we go explore the world and find amazing people and just learn on what works and what doesn't, how you get ahead in life, why some people fall behind, right? So let's dive right in. So I don't know. You've been successful. What would you say?
All the unsuccessful stuff made me successful, as that's what I always say. I would say that what taught me about success was there's always like the little things that add up. Things like the signature sometimes somebody would leave in the bottom of an email, the cover of a book, or seeing a lesson that I learned. I remember when my dad was laid off from his job. I was a senior in high school, and I remember I came back, we had a half day, and it was like 12:30, and he was there. This is the winter of 1993, and he's there, briefcase open, making phone calls. And not long ago, when the economy was going down and a lot of people were let go, I saw people saying, I'm maxing out my unemployment. I'm going the full 6 months. But I remember my dad drove home and he was on the phone making connections, looking to get that next job.
Instead of just taking the unemployment check.
I don't know if they gave unemployment back then. I don't even know if he knew.
Yeah.
And some people say that, you were an immigrant, so you learned that work ethic. But it's, of course, you hear the saying of you are the average of those your five closest friends. But it's the things I've seen in life, and it's certainly the like what I mentioned earlier, the unsuccessful times in my life that they're so painful that you never
want to repeat it.
You never want to go experience that kind of emotional pain again, and you're able to just do the things that the quote-unquote normal people don't want to do. People that don't want to wake up early, stay up late, lose sleep, be uncomfortable. Even little things like last night, I finished work at about 1:30. I woke up at 5:15. So that's just, 4 hours of sleep about?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, like, whenever I ask them, what do you have for breakfast? Or do you train in the morning? And it's always like, I'm too tired. I can't wake up. And they let circumstance kind of boss them around.
Yeah.
And I hate that feeling.
I had a guy say to me once, do you want to be average or do you want to be above average, right? Because the average guy hits the snooze button.
Yes.
In the morning, right?
Right, you have that in your book.
Yeah. And so I don't want to be average, you don't want to be average. And most people say they don't want to be average, but they do things that average people would do.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to wake up early, right? You got to go to bed early. You got to probably stay off the liquor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's, what's interesting to me is normal has moved, right? Normal,
Yeah.
Think about it. Normal in 400 BC was here.
Right.
Normal now is couch, potato, croissant, coffee, cigarette. That's normal.
Yeah.
Heart attack, cancer, normal.
Yes.
Right?
It's weird. So I'm 38, but my daughter now is just turned 8. My son just turned 6. And I remember when they were younger and I was running around with them at the lake or at the beach that I took notice to some of the other dads, and I saw that as soon as life, quote unquote, life happens, they just stopped everything aside from work and sitting down, meaning they stopped being fit. They stopped trying to be strong. They stopped trying to develop themselves, not just physically, but mentally.
They just shut down.
They just let it go. Like, I've got kids now. I can't do anything. For me, I always just look at like how to build momentum, meaning I know it doesn't take a whole lot. It's just chipping away. So for me, I know waking up early is going to be tough. But I know those first few minutes are going to go by fast, and I'm going to build momentum. Momentum is key. Same thing at the end of the night. I run 2 gyms, and I usually shut down at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
But my wife thinks that like 8 p.m. you close, you go home. I've got to mop floors, clean, pick up little pieces of garbage that I don't like to see. And then I have to do my workout.
Those things that you're talking about, what I found, I don't know if you found the same thing, is there's only 1% of the population that does that. Right? I mean,
I remember once saying somebody, that's the top 10%. Then my friend and I would say this, and then we were like, we don't even think it's a top 10, and then it became a top 5, and yeah.
It's 1%. I mean, think about it. You hire 10 people, only one of them is the good one, right?
Will follow through, will stay loyal, will do the things that are not what I say in the quote-unquote job description, meaning, so I run a gym, I don't tell the guys, you have to clean. But if you've got that like inner integrity, you walk by something, you see a piece of garbage, you pick it up.
Right. But that's 1 out of 10.
If it's in you, correct. Yep. That's the 1 out of 10. So being in business requires mental toughness. Being an entrepreneur
but that's
requires
interesting,
mental
right?
toughness.
So when we moved here to Pittsfield and we started to move here in 2002, I officially got here in 2005. But I remember it's a tiny little town. There's only 400 people in town. And I thought, we got to bring people to town. Wouldn't it be cool, because I've run businesses my whole life since I'm 11 years old, wouldn't it be cool to create a race where we found the 1%, right? This crazy event where people are chopping wood and carrying wheelbarrows and doing whatever we ask them to do. The survivors maybe are the 1%ers, the ones that you'd go in business with, right? And what we found is that, yes, they're amazing people, the ones that finish that race. It could last 48, 72 hours. But I think an entrepreneur almost has to deal with stuff that's much worse than that. You agree? Or
because there's no 48, 72 hours. It's sometimes months, years, a decade. There's many stories of people that have struggled, but they believed, and then they kept testing and tweaking, and everything
that can go wrong goes wrong. Right? Everything that can go wrong goes wrong.
Some of the worst things could happen to the entrepreneurs, meaning the marriage fails because you're putting in that. You miss out on kids growing up. But those are things that could go wrong if you allow them to go wrong. I'm going to back up that one of the most important things is you got to wake up early. You wake up early, you get things done while the normal people are asleep, and then you have the time to, do the right things in your life, to spend time with the family.
How long?
Thanks for listening to this classic episode of Spartan Up Podcast. This is the third in our series of special episodes around the new year. We want you to drive yourself to success every day, but we know many of you are taking on new challenges, especially at this time of the year. And without the right mindset, it's easy to let those new challenges, those new promises fall by the wayside. Stick with us. Subscribe to the podcast. Listen to Spartan Up. We're here 3 days a week to motivate you, to inspire you, to bring you new techniques. We are your virtual partner in resilience, here to stand at your side as you take on new challenges. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Junk, the official headband of Spartan Pros. Junk produces the best headband, guaranteed to work as hard as you do. Visit junkbrands.com/Spartan for 10% off your order.